Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. I'm Chris Garner, joined tonight with George Aldridge to give our review on The Shape of Water, which is Guillermo del Toro's 2017 fantasy drama film, and it's starring Sally Hawkins, Michael Shannon, and Doug Jones as another amphibious alien-like creature. It seems to be a running thing with Guillermo del Toro's films. How are you doing tonight, George?
I am very well, thank you. I am recovering. My eyes have been burning from watching this film.
Yes.
But I have seen one of the most anticipated Oscar films of this year.
Clearly, people like their fish porn, like right from the bat. Like this is nominated for like 13 Academy. I think this is the film with the most nominations this year, and I'm trying to think of other years. Like I'm thinking of like Return of the King. Did that get 14 or Ben-Hur?
I think so. I mean, La La Land got a very high amount last year. This is one of the rare ones where it's not just up for technical awards, but it's also up for the acting and the screenplay directing aspect. So, because Oscars, it's either you're nominated for technicals or you're up for that other academic half. And this is one of them rare ones where it's kind of clashed. It's got all of them together.
Yeah. And this movie's been released for quite a while in the US. We just got it this week in the UK. And as it's one of the big ones, we should say as well, we've got a playlist up of all the Academy Award films that have been released for us so far. There'll be a few more reviews coming out in the next couple of weeks as well for Phantom Thread. There's I, Tonya as well, and there's probably going to be a few others that we're going to try and tie up as well. Speaking of the Academy Awards as well, we will be doing a live stream for the 90th Academy Awards this year. I think it's sometime in March. I think it's the first week of March. Look out on our Facebook and Twitter for times of that when it happens. And we've got an Oscar predictions video, and it's a video that we're putting out to you guys as well. If you send us a list of your first and second nominations for each of the Oscar categories, whoever gets the most points on the night, whoever gets the most right, will win a chance to feature on one of our future episodes. So get those into us to our Facebook, and we'll pick a winner out just after the Oscars finish. So with all that being said, we'll get into our review now for Shape of Water. The plot, for anyone who doesn't know, is at a top secret research facility in the 1960s, a lonely janitor forms a unique relationship, I think that's putting it mildly, with an amphibious creature that is being held in captivity. I actually didn't read that synopsis before going into this movie. I watched it earlier today. I went into this movie completely cold. I knew roughly, I think, that it was a romance story. You and Tate had watched this a couple of days ago. What were your thoughts with this movie going into it? Are you a fan of Guillermo del Toro's previous work? Did you know what you were getting in for with this movie?
In all honesty, I genuinely think I've only seen one of his films. I may be wrong. That was Pacific Rim. And Pacific Rim is a film that I liked, but not as much as I wish I had. But I think it was a film with a very good idea that didn't have the best of executions. Shape of Water, though, I mean, it got released in Valentine's Day over here. It's a romance film, you know. It's just a casual mutant fish. You've never seen that before. I guess it's original to a degree. I think it's one of these Oscar films that's lived up its reputation. I thought it was up for so much, and because it's that rare breed of technical Oscars plus the performance Oscars as well, I guess we can say. I had very, very, very high expectations heading into this film. I mean, this is the most open Oscar year in a long time. I mean, last year, yes, La La Land didn't win, but everyone assumed La La Land was winning. Same with countless other years. Whereas this year, to me, this is a three-way split between Shape of Water, Dunkirk, and Three Billboards. This, to me, completed the main films to watch. And in all honesty, I didn't like the film as much as I think I meant to. I enjoyed it, and I thought there are some bits which are phenomenal, but I got a bit lost and a bit's putting it mild, but I got bored in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I understand why it's up for so much. I mean, we're going to get into it, but the stuff like production design, there is some real good stuff about this film. And like Guillermo, it's another one of his films where it's an out there idea, and it is great that for the genre. I don't really know, is this romance or is this fantasy or sci-fi or things you shouldn't be watching online?
Everything, really, isn't it?
It's not your standard Oscar bait film. Because it's got the things that are, but you never assume a film about, you know, a mutant and a fish getting on to be nominated for best film and all the other stuff. But I don't know. I don't know really where I stand with this, because it hasn't. I mean, everyone that knows on this channel knows that I love Nolan and that Dunkirk was my film of the year. It didn't have me gripped on the seat like that.
Mhm.
it didn't have me so invested like Three Billboards. It didn't. Obviously, it's not patriotic, it's not British, but it didn't have me looking forward to what's coming next in every scene like The Post. It didn't have me buzzing like watching Darkest Hour with Oldman. I felt there was something missing about this film.
Yeah.
Which, and I know I'm in a minority with that, but I really don't know where I stand with this one because I liked it. I just didn't love it.
No, I'm completely with you on this one. My initial opinion when it finished was I don't think I liked that movie. There are a lot of things I like. Going back to Guillermo del Toro, what does he do best? The visuals, the creature design. He is probably one of the most imaginative directors visually in the business today. If you look at any of his previous other films, his best one, most people will tell you, is probably Pan's Labyrinth, which is a film that I really like. And that's probably his most sort of like fantastical one in terms of its imagery and its characters. And there's elements of that in this movie. All that stuff's great. I can't fault it. What tends to be the case with most of his movies for me is just like, I don't know if it's the story. The story to this one isn't particularly original either. It feels like little snippets of films that I've seen before, like an overall romance, sort of like a Beauty and the Beast kind of situation. I've seen that in movies to death now, so there wasn't really anything new there. And even from a performance standpoint, while no one turns in a bad performance, like you were saying, the other movies that have come out this year, Darkest Hour, you have that one performance from Gary Oldman, which is really standout.
And Ben Mendelsohn.
And Ben Mendelsohn. And you do get a great performance in this movie with Michael Shannon, for example, but it didn't keep me engaged for like the running time, the 2-hour running time. I did feel bored. Your initial review on the film when you first saw it was that it has a strong opening, it has a strong ending, but the whole second act, the whole middle of it just sags. And I agree, like I was almost dozing off a little bit in the middle of this film. And I can't quite put my finger on why I didn't like it. I don't know I think it was a character standpoint. I just didn't feel invested in these characters. And I mean, the crux of this film, like the emotional through line, is Sally Hawkins' character falling in love and having some kind of kinship with this strange aquatic amphibian-like alien thing that shows up, which isn't given an origin or anything like that, which I was fine with. It adds to the mystery. I don't know if that whole relationship thing happened really quickly. Like it seemed to just happen in a scene. It didn't feel as earned as I think the movie kind of thought it would. You kind of get a monologue, and I'm going to try and keep this as spoiler-free as possible. She has like this monologue in the film where she says something like, he connects with me. He doesn't know anything about my past. He just accepts me for who I am. And that's really it. And that's kind of, you're meant to be your foundation for your big romance. And it didn't feel as earned as I initially thought it would based on reviews for this film and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into story specifics because of spoilers and whatnot for those that haven't seen it, but the film, oh God, I'm a spoiler then. What happens at the end of the opening act, I thought would be the end of the film. And the entirety of the film, would, like a romance, would be building it up to this point to then have something happen, as spoiler-free as I can. What threw me with this is that it happens in the opening act, and the final act I thought was outstanding. But just the middle, spoiler-free, the middle, it was so sudden, it didn't feel earned as to where they go. And it's a shame because, say they had 15 more minutes, they literally meet 3 times and they're in love. And they have a montage and suddenly they know each other inside out. Whereas I don't feel it got to that point because it started off so well with it, building them up their first few meetings with one another, given the Michael Shannon story in the background, given the Soviet Cold War stuff happening, which I loved as well. And then it just suddenly escalates, and then the film dips, and then it gets great again at the end. No coincidence, the final act is completely down to Michael Shannon's story arc. But that's when it gets interesting again. And I just felt like you could add on 15, 20 minutes more of the opening act, take that off the middle. And I feel like then the film would probably be as great as everyone says. Again, I know I'm in a minority with this, but it didn't feel as earned. And you're right, they kind of just get tricked together. And I thought, Sally Hawkins was great being, we don't often see mute characters. I will say, I know there's literally a film coming out in a couple of weeks called Mute, starring Paul Rudd, and I forgot his name. Duncan Jones directing it. His film called Mute's got a mute in the main lead, and it's just poor timing that for the first time probably had 2 films with a mute in the lead in the space of 2 weeks. I thought she was great, and I understood her character motives and her reasons why. And but it doesn't. I mean, we don't need it explained why the fish monster thing. It doesn't really have a name, but I don't think it actually does.
It's this is on Wikipedia. It's credited as the amphibian man or the asset, which they refer to him as kind of a general term throughout the
Asset's a better word, but he just seems to, he just seems to like her from the go because she's not punching him, and that's fine. But it just happens so quickly, and I would wanted to see more of their interactions with one another rather than when it jumps forwards to a different time point.
Yeah.
Because I thought it's there. I mean, I don't. There is chemistry. I mean, Sally Hawkins is performing with. I mean, Doug Jones is one of those kind of masters of, not motion capture. He's like the makeup guy,
just
isn't
like
he?
Physicality and stuff.
Yeah, he's an actor that no one would know his face, but everyone knows his performances. He's like the half original Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
Not as a disrespect to him, but literally. And I thought it was great, but I didn't need to know more about him. I just needed to believe this romance, and I don't think I did, which didn't help. But the other thing that didn't help entirely, I know this is jumping ahead. I said this from the trailers. I've said this to you and Tate on chat, that it just reminded me of a BioShock video game. The entire film, there was something about it. I know it's not like it, but going on the production design, the aesthetics, the tight corridors, it felt very video gamey in a good way. But it kind of struck me off a bit that sometimes I thought I was slipping into like, oh, I'm on PS3.
You have like your old-timey setting, you have your record players, your gramophones and everything like that. And the opening shot of the movie, without giving anything away, it's like a tracking shot underwater, and that did remind me of Rapture. Yeah, if briefly what you said, like on the performances, Sally Hawkins great, and I'm guessing that that has to be tough to act as a mute kind of person. You have to be very expressive. She talks in sign language throughout the film. I really liked Richard Jenkins' character in the film. I've seen him in Cabin in the Woods. He's just always like a really likable, funny personality to the film. I thought he worked well. Hands down, the best actor in the film is Michael Shannon. And this is going to be one of my criticisms of the film, and I don't know if you felt the same. Michael Shannon feels like he's in a very different movie to the rest of it. This film, to me, felt very tonally inconsistent. It didn't really know what kind of film it wanted to be. On the one hand, you could kind of have your... God, I was going to do a pun there, and I really don't want to. Your fish out of water story, like a kind of E.T. thing where he's interacting with her and sort of like adjusting to the world, and you have your cutesy moments, and like a relationship could blossom from that. You have elements of like Free Willy in there as well, where you've got these horrible corporate people trying to keep a hold of it, and they're trying to like set him free and things like that. And then like Michael Shannon shows up and like the whole Russian double agent thing, and it feels like you're watching some kind of Cold War thriller movie. And Michael Shannon's like got a gun and he's like going round. I mean, he is intense in this movie. He is really, really intense. And I don't think he's been nominated, has he, for Best Supporting Actor this year?
This is what I'm looking at the list now, and we've got Willem Dafoe, Friday Project. I haven't seen it, but I've heard he's the second favorite. Woody Harrelson and Sam Rockwell from 3 Billboards, who both deserve to be there. Christopher Plummer from All the Money in the World, and we've got Richard Jenkins from The Shape of Water. Now, personally, I think that should be Michael Shannon instead of Richard Jenkins, because he's great in it. Don't get me wrong; he's a very likable character. It's a great performance, but Michael Shannon is stealing every scene he's in, and there's something so sinister about him that you're right, he doesn't fit in, which is why I think he works in this film, because the bog standard romance film is that they are separated by a mutual something happens, whereas the romance is built off Michael Shannon being one hell of a evil guy, and everything interesting in this film revolves around his character, especially when at the end he's pushing it to the next level. The entirety of the third act is basically around the character of Michael Shannon more than anything, and you believe his reasons for his actions. But there's just, I mean, he's like everyone. He's an intimidating guy. He's probably one of the nicest guys in the world. But I struggle to see people that can just be sinister at the click of a fingers like him. There's some great people that can. There's some real great guys that always play great villains, but Michael Shannon just naturally has it.
Like he can just walk into a room, not have a word of dialogue, and the guy looks intense.
I mean,
so good that way.
I spoke to you before we hit record. If anyone's seen the Iceman, you'd know exactly what we mean. He's a phenomenal actor, but I thought in this he should have been nominated. He's the best thing about this film, and to me, he has the most interesting story arc of all of them.
It's the weird shift from. I mean, the last film I think I saw him in like major film, was Nocturnal Animals. And in that movie, I really wish that Aaron Taylor-Johnson had been nominated for Best Supporting, but Michael Shannon was. And in this movie, it's like Michael Shannon should have been nominated, and he hasn't. Truly standout performance in this movie, every single scene with him. And like there's little hints of the character that aren't really fleshed out, but you can tell like he does Bible scripture in this movie. He's almost like Samuel Jackson's character from Pulp Fiction in some scenes in this movie, where he's doing like biblical stories and things like that. And it's not really a huge factor of the character that's centered on, but it's like a little hint, and it like fleshes out the character a bit more. Loved him in this movie. And I guess I've got to talk about Octavia Spencer as well. I thought she was really good in the movie. She's really sassy, kind of reminded me of her character from Hidden Figures as well from last year. But Doug Jones, one of the standout. This is always the case with Guillermo del Toro's films, though, is the makeup and creature designs. And the makeup's fantastic. It's a suit. I don't know if they augmented it with CGI or if it was all an animatronic. If it was, fair play, because I'm all for that. It pretty much is the same character design as the character that Doug Jones played in Hellboy of Abe, the fish guy. It's pretty much like they've reused the same suit. I really like the character, but I just wish, like we said, there was more sort of getting to know the character. There's a moment in the film where the Sally Hawkins character and he initially bond, and I was kind of on board with it at that point, and I wanted to see that develop more. And his character is a very mysterious character. We never really get an origin, and we never fully understand the scope of what he can do. And I guess I'll keep it to that for now, which works for the film. But like also when they're initially talking, she's using sign language, and like he immediately picks up on it and is having conversations with her. I don't know if it's done through a montage, so you can assume that she's taught him or something like that. But in terms of a physicality, you know, physical performance, everything like that, Doug Jones is great. And that's really all I have to say on the movie. It really didn't do anything for me. The music was very unique. I will say that. Alexandra Desplat, is that his name?
Desplat? I've never known how to pronounce it.
And I said to you before we hit record, there's moments of this movie, not just down to the fact that Sally Hawkins kind of looks like Amelie, but the music as well. It's like a French accordion sound, and it really did remind me of the film Amelie. That might be a detriment, because everyone who's watched this knows that I hate the film Amelie. I might be in the minority there. I know you hate it too, but
the score is a weird one because I liked it, but I felt, I mean, I haven't done my research, but I felt the best parts of the score were using the old school 60s music, as in the sort of, not Vera Lynn's not doing the voice in it, but you know, that kind of like the Fallout games. That kind of that lone voice on the radio. I thought that was the best bit of the soundtrack. And I mean, okay, maybe I haven't researched it, so I don't take my word for it, but he did, you know, the best soundtrack wasn't from Alexander Desplat. He was great, his theme's great, but to me, knowing that Hans Zimmer's up for Dunkirk, it would be a travesty for him to lose out to this, and I'm scared he will.
Yeah.
We've got a comment from Brinsley, who says he's got a high chance of winning Best Picture, but mainly a career award for Del Toro. I think it's precisely that. I've said to us on chat that everything he's won has just been, this has been about 25 years of filmmaking, and I really don't like stuff like that. It was like the whole Leonardo DiCaprio, he won Best Actor because he hadn't won Best Actor. Gary Oldman deserves it this year as well. He's saying he does deserve it. The only reason why Daniel Lewis was going to win originally was because he's retiring, but Gary Oldman's beat him. It's going to be like John Williams. He's not going to win it this year. He'll win it for episode 9 because that will be his Star Wars swan song. Not Giacchino. And Ennio Morricone won because he'd never won the Oscar before. This year, it's a shame because I think there are 2 outstanding films in Dunkirk and 3 Billboards. There are a lot of other great films nominated, but Martin McDonagh didn't even get nominated for Best Director. And I granted that's more of a drama, but he should have been up there. And I think Nolan should have Best Director, and I think the 3 Billboards should have Best Film. I know this is kind of turned into an Oscar talk rather than this review, but I thought this film was very good. But I feel anyone that knows this I don't normally do our Oscar season videos because I love the Oscars, the ceremony, but I'm not the biggest fan of the build-up and all the hype because so many of these films have been released in July. No one would care, like Detroit. Detroit is missing from the Oscar talk because it came out in August. It deserved to be around this. Will Poulter should be winning Best Supporting Actor. As much as I love Samurai Cry, this should be World Report winning. It didn't come out in December, so it's not allowed to be nominated. I feel if this film had come out in August, no one would really be talking. It'd been stylish, production design, technicals, don't get me wrong, stunning. But all of these, Best Actress, I understand, but some of these nominations, I just feel like it's Oscar season, they've got to do it. And I love Del Toro, don't get me wrong, but this is, if he wins it, and he's kind of on the edge, isn't he, over Nolan in terms of look at what people's winning elsewhere. It does feel like a career Oscar win rather than who has done the best directed work in 2017. Yeah. I think that goes unbiasedly to Nolan or McDonough for just doing something else.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do think this genuinely does have a strong chance of winning Best Picture. I guess this is going to be this film's, because with Three Billboards, I watched it the first time and again went into it with massive amounts of hype. And I was let down by it. But now the more we talked about it and the more I think about it, and now I know what the film is, I probably will go back to that movie and find more enjoyment in it. It'll probably get better every single time I watch it. With this one, I know. I've seen it and I didn't gravitate towards this movie. This is going to be this film's equivalent of that movie that I just don't get. Everyone's praising it. It's nominated for 13 Academy Awards and I'm there like I just don't get it. Makeup, fair enough, as you said, production design, all that good stuff. I cannot fault Guillermo del Toro when that's involved with his movies. His movies, I mean, I love Pan's Labyrinth, that's the one exception, but like most of his movies just don't hit me. I just don't get invested in the story or the characters. It always feels like something's missing. Personally, for me, I think that this movie feels very uneven. It feels totally inconsistent with a lot of things. There are some scenes that are downright ridiculous and that I hate, which I'll get into in spoilers, that really took me out of the movie. Visually, it's great, but just the substance of the movie, I could see the message they were trying to go for. However, to me, that message just isn't an original one. It's been told to death a million times. It's been told a million times better in other movies, and it just didn't do anything for me. I will probably never watch this movie again. It's fine. I know I can understand that some people will find a lot to like in this movie. I can only recommend this movie in all honesty if you're a fan of like cool creature designs, if you are a fan of Del Toro's more Pan's Labyrinth kind of work, or if you just want to go into it and see a great Michael Shannon performance, this is your movie. For me, other than that, there really wasn't anything else to get worked up about.
Yeah, I thought it's a good film. If you want to watch it, it's Oscar season. It's one of the Oscar favorites. Watch it, have an opinion on it. A lot of people seem to like it, but I think only a minority that isn't there. I'm sorry, I'm reading Brunzi's comment, and he said, I might be cynical. I think Nolan's getting a lot more praise. I think Nolan would be getting more praise if it was about American soldiers. You are absolutely spot on, my friend. I'm not going to bother typing the reply. I was halfway through. He's going to win the BAFTA on Sunday because it was British and it was about Dunkirk. That's the BAFTAs being biased, as they always are. Because it's not about America, he's not going to be winning. Well, if he does, it's a humongous achievement, but it's not about American soldiers, so it's not going to do as well at the Oscars. Saving Private Ryan, until last year, to me, was the untouchable war film. I've said this multiple times on our channel. There's been a better war film about it. The opening 20 minutes, Saving Private Ryan is the best 20 minutes cinema in history. I will also keep on record of that. But as a film, I think Dunkirk outdoes it. No matter how Saving Private Ryan is still one of the best, that won everything because it was D-Day is the American part of World War II, even though they forget there was other things helping out. I love that film, but the Oscars are a cynical organization, and that's why last year there was. I adored. I mean, I wasn't on our La La Land review, and if Taylor's watching this is where he turns off. I absolutely despised La La Land. I absolutely hated it. To me, when I read into it, because I love reading into my films after about how the production, the ideas came across and stuff like that. Like Three Billboards, he literally saw 3 dirty old billboards and wanted to build a story off it. Simple. La La Land was written before Whiplash came out. It was set in Boston. It was about students or something like that, and no one wanted to pick it up at all. He wrote Whiplash, did amazing, and then he rewrote La La Land to be set in LA about actors. Then straight away it gets picked up. Straight away it's up for Oscars because it's. I mean, the Academy vote was Drive Home is the set of La La Land. Let's be honest, isn't it? That was the Oscar bait of Oscar bait, and I despised it for them reasons. I would have been more interested to see how it would have been as a romance in Boston. Just something a bit different like this. I mean, like I said to you as a joke before, if Sally Hawkins was an actress set in LA, this would easily be winning best film tonight. In a couple of weeks, but it's not, is it? So the Oscars are a cynical. I love them. Don't get me wrong. I'll be up every year watching them. I absolutely love them, but they're so cynical in their own right. that's me on a little half Oscar rant. I did like this film, but what I'll say, I think I said to one of my friends as well, is I didn't love it. I can see why it's up for all the Oscars, but to me, this is definitely not my favorite Oscar film of this year. I haven't seen Phantom Thread. I reckon it'd be around that type of film. If I'm,
yeah,
whoever can survive that is going to end a brilliant.
You never know. You might really enjoy Phantom Thread.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I mean, an opinion I'm never afraid to admit is that I'm not the biggest fan of There Will Be Blood. Granted, I've only seen it once. I love Daniel Day-Lewis in it. I didn't like the film too much. I'm not down if it's even less boring about him making clothes. No matter how good a performance, no matter if it's his last, there's a reason he thought he wanted to retire halfway through filming. That's always what I say.
Well, we'll know in a few weeks' time, won't we, when we get to our review of Phantom Thread. That's going to be a riveting one. I think I've pretty much said everything I can on The Shape of Water for spoiler-free. So this is your warning. We're going to get into spoilers now. So if you haven't seen Shape of Water yet and you're curious, go and check it out first. Come back to us afterwards, because we are going to ruin this entire film for you. Although, in all honesty, the poster of this movie kind of ruins the entire movie in a way. And I guess that's a good time as any to jump into spoilers. Where do you want to hit on this movie first?
What, spoilers?
Spoilers. Do we talk about the fish sex or do we just get to the ending?
I mean, everyone knows that's happening. That was the joke before you watched the film. Just the ending, the Michael Shannon goes on a rampage, kills everyone in his sight, shoots everybody, which was absolutely amazing. He has a wonderful villain's death. And then they survive in the water and he swims her and turns her into a fish. He turns her into Daniel Radcliffe out of the Goblet of Fire. She's got like gills on her neck so she can swim underwater with him for eternity. That's all I could think of. I literally, that film finished me thinking, wow, imagine this had been Daniel Radcliffe in a Harry Potter costume again. When
you first see I did think of the Goblet of Fire as well, the whole gillyweed thing. I was there with you there. At the start of the film, you see like the 3 scratches on her neck, and they say that was an accident or something, which has rendered her mute after that. And I only saw it on the one side. When we got to the end and I saw it on both sides, I was like, oh no, they're going to do something really dumb now, aren't they? And the moment she sprouted gills, I was just out of this movie. I was like, this is ridiculous now. I hate it. And the thing is, you've got this fish guy, and they don't have sort of like, there's no holds barred on his powers. Like there's even moments where they say like, is it an alien? Is it a god? Like they don't know what it is. He has the power of regeneration on himself, and he can also gift this to other people, can heal wounds and everything like that. And now he also has a power to make people have gills. Like if you wanted it that much, why didn't they just do it? There are a lot of things in this movie that make no sense. Number one, how Sally Hawkins' character even gets that close to him in the first place. This is like one of the government's top kept secrets. Like they've got this thing under lock and key in like this dungeon laboratory or wherever it is. And there's no security on hand at all monitoring it at all times. They just leave it in the room. They let the cleaners go in there. So there's that. And also kind of, I'm jumping all around this film, but as the film sort of comes to a head, Michael Shannon's going after them. He ends up in Sally Hawkins' apartment and he sees the calendar that she's written the day and place where she's going to take him to like release him back into the oceans. Why would you write that on a calendar? Like if you knew yourself the day you were going to do it, why would you have to write that on? It was just a plot mechanic to get to that sort of ending where you have Michael Shannon's character pursuing her at the end. So all of that, I was just out of it. I was out of the movie. I thought this is ridiculous. Not the most ridiculous scene in the movie, but I'll let you pitch in before I go into the first scene of this film.
I mean, now in spoilers, I can say that I loved the opening third, but when it rushes into the relationship, like 1 minute they're half like she's scared of him, then the next she's dancing to his window. That it would just happen way too quickly for me. And I loved the stuff with the Russian guy watching and wanting to keep it alive because he's a scientist and stuff. But I thought the finale of the film would be the big breakout would be the entirety of the final act, breaking them out, getting him into the sea with Michael Shannon chasing them. Yeah,
you have your shot of like slow motion, like jumping over her. That'd be great.
It probably would have happened, to be fair. I was just really bored when she took him home, and it reminded me of E.T. just wrapped up in blankets and stuff, like in the little trolley. I just got a bit bored when he was at home with her. I thought that really, because I was really enjoying it, and then it really slowed down the film, horrifically slow. And then only at the end, when Michael Shannon has his monologue, then it really kicks back into gear. So for me, this film's like an artery like that will dip then back up.
Yeah.
But that's down to, I think, Michael Shannon's character arc. But
he carries that movie towards the end of the film.
I really think he does. I think if he's not in that final third, I think it'd be very, very boring. And not just because there's no villain, but it all happened too quickly in the opening third, which meant there was, as soon as he's out in that opening, actually like, oh, okay. So now we just have to wait till they realise he's at home for the finale to happen. That's the shame. Whereas I wanted to see more of them in the fish tank and as the cleaner, because there was some real good tense scenes, but it loses its momentum because he's suddenly at home with her.
No, Michael, towards the end, like, it's one of the most intense performances I've seen in a long time in a film. When a guy's like been shot through the cheek and he needs to get answers out of him, and he like hooks his fingers through his cheek and drags him along the floor. Guy's been shot in the gut and he's like digging his fingers inside. It's like, oh, it's like really grim stuff, but it's great.
And he does a great villainous monologue speech as well.
Yeah,
about how he eats the candy. He's like, do I want to take my time with? He's basically, comparing him like, you're basically my green candy at the minute. Like, do I want to do you slowly, or am I going to take my time? And I just thought that stuff works so well.
He does like his Samson and Delilah speech as well, and also like this guy is dedicated. This guy is like focused and is determined on a goal, even if like himself is infected or something like that. Basically, towards the beginning of the film, he gets his fingers bitten off by the fish creature, and they get sort of like sewn back on, but they don't take it. They've all gone septic and they go in black, and people are saying they smell horrible. And he like full on twists them off and rips them off after a monologue, which is horrible. But it really reminded me of one of, I think it was Guillermo del Toro's first movie he ever did, called Kronos, which is a Spanish horror film. It's like a body horror film. It's about this guy who dies, but I think he's immortal. He has this, I've only seen it the once, I'm trying to remember it. He has this artifact that sort of keeps him alive, but his body's like still decomposing, and it's like horrible and gross, and he's got like body parts falling off him and everything like that. And it really reminded me of that.
It might have been District 9.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought that scene, I forgot about that as well. Just again, I think Octavia Spencer's brilliant in everything she does. And just when he has her pinned up on the wall, and like her husband couldn't give less of a shit, and he just takes off the fingers and just throws them onto the carpet. That was one of them real squirmy scenes. Like, oh, like you can feel like how grim that would be. And again, that's down to his character. And I love the fact that at the start of the film, we do get him vulnerable. It was too easy to introduce the secret guy as the big bad man, keep torturing across the film. But in this, you almost feel sorry for him, because at the beginning, he loses his fingers and he's almost dead. So that, and then he builds as the film goes on and stuff. And he's got a very weird fetish about people being quiet as well.
Yeah, no,
that's one of the villainous tropes.
Yeah, he's just this really weird, like, from the off, he's not quite right. But if, for example, going back to the finger scene, this is why I think the film's totally inconsistent. You take that scene and then you mash that with the interpretive dance sequence, and the internal imagination fantasy of our main character, where she's tap dancing with the fish creature in some kind of like old Singing in the Rain kind of movie. It was ridiculous. That was my least favorite scene in the film. You could have had a moment. What I thought they were doing was, which it kind of hints at anyway, the lighting in this scene's beautiful. She's sitting across the kitchen table with him, and all the lights dim, but it keeps the spotlight on her. Obviously the character's mute, but she sort of like struggles to talk, and she's like eking out some words. And it could have been just like, I love you. And this could have been in her head what she wanted to say to him, but just didn't have the ability to. Lights could have gone back up. It could have gone back to the table. But you have that like whole musical number. And I know it's meant to be sort of like that was the movie she was watching on TV. So there is a point to it. It doesn't come completely out of nowhere. But in other respects, it kind of does, because you have other scenes like that I just mentioned with Michael Shannon, or some of the darker scenes with the whole like Russian and double agent thing. Then you have scenes like that. It just didn't feel focused. It felt pick a genre, pick a tone, and like stick to it.
Yeah, it reminded me of La La Land.
Yeah, no, it did.
Very different. I mean, actually, yeah, I would say it's similar. La La Land, to me, that scene's added on. I know the point of it is they could have been together. If every romance film had an alternate 5-minute pre-ending, then who knows? And it felt exactly like it goes. It just, I understood why the director wanted to do it, but it just doesn't. It doesn't work. It doesn't need to be there. Just and that's one of the issues of that scene in La La Land, and seeing an almost carbon copy of it. I went like, rather than being agitated, I thought it was just quite funny because there was a giant dancing fish that I just can't unsee. I can't unsee a lot from that film, I'm afraid.
Yeah, oh, right. I guess you can add that to his list of skills, like regeneration, giving gills to people, and like an expert dancer, apparently, as well.
This is how the mer people were. Oh, I thought you were going to talk about something else. So this is how the mer people were invented. This film.
This film is going to create like a new, really creepy category
on Google Images.
You've got your furries, and now like you're going to have the scalies or something. Like, which way round do you prefer your mermaids? Like, I don't know. It's weird. I've said
change the subject quickly.
I've said everything I can on this movie. I'm really struggling to think of anything else. My overall opinions: it's a fine movie. It's somewhat entertaining. It's got some artistic merit to it. The production design, the makeup, the costume, the direction's there. You've got some great performances as well. However, you had all these great like ingredients and parts, but none of it seemed to gel for me personally. I wasn't really particularly invested in the story or the characters, and story and characters to me are absolutely central. As well as everything else, everything has to sort of gel, and this movie just didn't do it for me. If you're going to go and see a Guillermo del Toro film, go and watch Pan's Labyrinth. It's a much better movie than this. Go and watch Kronos as well, or something, or anything else. But like this, to me, it feels overhyped. It feels like that classic Oscar one. Could win a lot on the technical, well, like the production designers I mentioned, all the other categories. But I think, judging with the other movies that we've got up there, whether it be Dunkirk, whether it be Three Billboards, I think it would be kind of a bit of a travesty if this won Best Picture. Travesty might be a strong word, but I would be significantly let down if this wins Best Picture, because this is the equivalent of this year where I guess I just don't see what everyone else sees with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the perfect description for it, because I can see why it's there, but it's really, for me, not the film that deserves it at the end of the day. It's got a place being there, but I just can't put it into limelight over some of the other films which are nominated.
Yeah. We just had a comment for Brinsley. I guess that will wrap it up. That will do it for our review on The Shape of Water. It's interesting what we'll be reviewing next. We've been talking about doing a review for Get Out, which was a movie I think all of us missed when it originally came out last year, but it's one that we all want to talk about. We've all seen now. I don't know if that'll be our next movie review. I'm meant to be on a review with Tate on Monday for the Netflix released Cloverfield movie, Cloverfield Paradox. So that'll probably be the next one if you watch out for that. I've mentioned it before, but in terms of other Academy Award movies, we'll be on one for I, Tonya. We'll be doing one for Phantom Thread, as we mentioned earlier. I think there are a few other ones as well, but they haven't really had big releases, or they've already come out. So
Call Me By Your Name, I think, one of the other one. I mean, I think Timothy Chalamet. Sorry, it's Timothy Chalamet, but it's like that director in it, Chalamet.
Yeah.
Timmy's up for an Oscar, so that's the one people are saying to watch. And he's not going to win, but Call Me By Your Name is the one that went completely under the radar, and sometimes they're the better ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, if they get released at our theaters or anything, we'll get a review out before the Oscars done. So wrapping up once again, mentioning the Oscar predictions video, get your predictions into us. First and second choices on all the Oscar categories. Whoever gets the most points right, whoever gets the most correct on the night of the Oscars will win a chance to feature on one of our future episodes. Get those into us on our Facebook or Twitter. All the links to our social media links are in the description down below. And I guess that'll do it. I think we've pretty much covered everything. We should have some other shows coming out as well. There'll be more reaction videos from me. We'll have another Battle of the Brackets out to you at some point. We're just sort of getting all the Academy Awards stuff out of the way. Subscribe, spread the word, all that good stuff. And until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.